Hey y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. This is the first and the only podcast dedicated to all things night vision, thermal imaging, hog hunting, coyote hunting. If it's got anything to do with night hunting or night optics, we're going to talk about it on this show. And I'm excited to say that this is episode number 100 of the Late Night Vision Show. Can't believe we made it this far. My name is Jason. I'm the owner of Outdoor Legacy, specializing in night vision and thermal optics. And I've got my trusty sidekick, as always, Hans from the world famous Hans East Texas YouTube channel. What's going on tonight, buddy?
With that negative comment that you didn't think we were going to make it here, I might say you might be tonight officially the Carol Baskin of the Late Night Vision Show podcast. If you're watching Tiger King documentary, I suggest it. It is the best thing on TV right now. And Jason, I'm going to call you Carol all night long. Carol Baskin.
Anybody who's not watching that documentary has no idea what you're talking about.
And
so
you need to go check it out. It's all, well, I think Jason and I talked about it for about an hour earlier when we were supposed to talk about the show and planning the show. But it is great to be here for episode 100. We've talked about it now for 99 weeks. If we could only make it to episode 100 without skipping a week, it'd be a milestone. And that's one thing, maybe a lot of people out there that are new listeners or new to the show. I know we've got people that listen all around the world, just about on every continent that we get messages from people. And I do want to give a shout out to all the people in New Zealand. We've got a lot of people from New Zealand that listen to the show and write in. But, you know, one thing that people may not know, we have gone 100 straight weeks without skipping a week. And that includes vacations, holidays. I made Jason take his recording equipment on vacation with him to New Mexico the year before last. And so
Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, anniversaries, It doesn't matter. We're recording.
Yeah. So we'll get into here pretty soon how we got into how the show came to be and all that kind of fun stuff, because there's some funny stories we want to talk about. But really, you know, just kind of sitting back and reflecting. You know, I think you said it, you know, the first and only podcast dedicated to night vision and thermal. You know, that's what the show is centered around, with, you know, reviewing scopes. A big portion of what we do is reviewing scope and optics, field reviews, talk about hunting tactics. But a lot of it is you and I's experience, and especially your experience in the industry. You know, my hunting 6 nights a week. People ask, how often do you hunt? And I tell them 6 nights a week. And the only reason it's not 7 is because I record a podcast on the 7th night, which is
that's right,
100% true.
It's 100%
and you can ask my wife.
Yeah. And I want to say something about that too. So, you know, it always seems like just the way this thing works out, is that I will go for, you know, periods of time on my place where I don't see hogs. We all kind of go through this. I mean, Hans has been in a dry spell a little bit for a while on some of his properties. And then we'll have times where I'm actually seeing hogs, and I'm always seeing them at the most inopportune time. Yeah. So I didn't even mention this to Hans before we started recording, but I thought it was pretty, you know, whatever you want to say, just bad luck. We're recording episode 100. There's nothing I can do about it. This is planned. Hans is waiting. And I take one last quick scan across my pasture, and there's 18 hogs in the pasture right now. Yeah. 18 hogs. And I just sigh deeply, put my monocular back on top of the gun safe, and head up here to record a podcast while they destroy my pasture. But it is what it is.
So like I said, a lot of what we talk about is hunting. We have interviews, quite a few interviews with people in the industry or related to hog or predator hunting. We've had some great guests on in the last 100 weeks. But the show also includes our families, and we've had our wives on for couple episodes, and that's always a lot of fun and a lot of stress for Jason. Train wrecks. So, you know, we really appreciate y'all joining us for the last 100 weeks and all of the, you know, gosh, it seems like a long time ago, but it's not actually 2 years yet.
Sometimes it feels like 1,000, and sometimes it feels like 10. You know, and I'm sure to the people who listen every week, they think it feels more like 1,000.
Exactly. So, but we know that a lot of you tune in on YouTube and watch the videos, and we really do appreciate that. There's a lot of production that goes and involved, and equipment that's involved in that. If you listen on the road and you listen on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify, like a lot of people do that travel a lot, I've got a lot of friends that listen, that actually listen in the tractor when they're out baling hay or, taking care of the cows. They listen on the tractor, and we appreciate any way that you tune in. We appreciate it because this show would be nothing without the people that listen and also the people that call in to Outdoor Legacy and purchase scopes and optics, and we definitely want to give our main sponsor, Mr. Jason Robertson, a shout out at the beginning of the show because he is our main and only sponsor. And
I was going to say, let's go main and only, only
main and only, and he is the only, or that company is the only company that we have a tie or an allegiance to. We are not bound by any other company except Outdoor Legacy. So I would say that if you're interested in anything related to night vision thermal optics, please give Outdoor Legacy a call. We're going to talk about a little bit about the team here in a little bit, but you can always find all that stuff on outdoorlegacygear.com. You can also call 877-350-1818. You can either talk to Jason. More than likely, at first you may talk to Michaela, which you should be so lucky. She's great, and you'll get to learn a little bit more about her, but also Jason and I too. So we appreciate all the interaction and all the people tuning in every week.
We do. We absolutely do. And, you mentioned that, talking about some other people who are behind the scenes here. And that's something we want to do. If you listen every week, we have, briefly mentioned Michaela and some other people, and we want to do that tonight just to kind of let people know, who is on this team that we've got. And we say, again, Outdoor Legacy and the Late Night Vision Show, are obviously closely tied. And one of the people who helps us with a lot of what we do, and then obviously helps majorly in the business, is my office manager, Michaela. And if you do call, most likely she's the person you're going to talk to. She is an amazing young lady. She is not my wife. I want to be clear for that. There's a lot of guys who, and I understand, they assume that maybe just my wife helps in the business. My wife has answered the phone about 1 or 2 days. She helped during the holidays when I was really busy, and she answered some phone calls. And I think that might have been a train wreck, but no, she was home, and so she was trying to help. But Michaela is who you talk to on a daily basis.
Yeah, she's a young college, still in college and going to school.
Yeah, she's about to graduate, and so she's been with us a very long time. I can't, to be honest, I probably should have been prepared to look back how long, but I know probably 5 years anyway that she's been with me, and she is just an excellent, and she started out as somebody who was nowhere near the phones. She was basically doing some data entry for me on the back end of the website, and she's smart as a whip, got a great personality, and I started letting her do more and more things, and finally I was like, hey, why don't you start answering the phone? And she was like, man, I just don't know. What if people ask questions? I'm like, all you're doing is directing them to me. Well, you know what? Before long, she can answer a decent amount of questions. I mean, she doesn't use the optics. She's not a hunter. She'll tell you that. She's grown up in a household full of brothers and dad and grandparents who are, big hunters, hog hunters and deer hunters. So she's grown up in a farm family. So she knows the lingo, and it always is kind of funny because she'll say, I've heard you talk about that scope enough. I think I could tell them all those answers. No, she's great. But I think, the thing I don't want to, skip over here is Hans. We've got Hans sitting here who everybody knows that without Hans, this podcast wouldn't exist because nobody would show up to hear me blabber every week, just ramble for 45 minutes about the specs and the features without somebody tapping their foot over there to shut me up.
Every week you give me just a very flattering comment that I'm a very poor man's Ed McMahon of the show. So.
you sort of are. I'm not. I admit I'm not Johnny Carson. By any means.
I'm a poor man's Ed McMahon.
You're a great Ed McMahon. You really are. But no, seriously. Hans is obviously a major part of this team, and it's been great to have him on the podcast. It would not exist without him.
Yeah,
and we're going to get into a little bit of the backstory. I don't want to do that right here.
Yeah,
It'd be
get
easy,
into the backstory because there's a lot of people that want to know that are hunters out there that want to know how to get hooked up with a company, and I can probably help provide a little insight on that. So. Kind of how you and our relationship got started, but we have somebody on the team, very well-respected member of the team that unfortunately up to this point has not been mentioned, but he's very valuable. And
I think he might have been mentioned somewhere. Yeah, I think we did somewhere. Yeah. So tell him who it is.
Well, I'll let you tell him because I'll say this. I'll do the informal introduction, but we are fortunate in this day and age because there's so many different media platforms, and all of them are important, whether it be the content on YouTube, internet traffic, audio things. It all comes down to searches and being able to get your information and your show out there as much as possible, and ultimately your company name. But we have we're fortunate enough that we have a gentleman that is, I guess you would consider a field staff writer.
I consider him I mean, his official title is basically the staff writer or staff blogger. Yeah. And his name is Chester Cupp, and he is a retired U.S. Army colonel. And he is a super easygoing guy. I mean, I feel like I should be referring to him as Colonel Cupp and, standing at full attention, but he just wants us to call him Chester. And he is the nicest guy you'll ever meet, but he's extremely sharp. He's got obviously a career's worth of experience in the Army as a colonel, and he brings a ton of knowledge from there, but he's also a huge coyote and hog hunter, as well as I want to say the word and don't want to mess it up, prolific writer.
Yeah, very good writer from Georgia.
Very good writer. Georgia. The way that he lives in Georgia. Yeah, Georgia. He lives there now.
Yeah.
And the way that, and I'm going to say one more thing too. He's got a stepson, Doug Graham, who is as much a part of this as Chester is. Doug is a very, very big hunter, and Doug and Chester do a lot of hunting together. They've got a lot of different optics between the two of them, and then we send them stuff to test as well, and they use it in the field. They give us feedback, and a lot of times their feedback is going into our reviews and things that we talk about, and then we have Chester write up reviews and stuff on this, and he is excellent at that. So, Hans said, we've got a lot of things covered. I mean, we're doing the podcast audio on the podcast apps. We're doing the YouTube for video. We've got, social media. But the one thing that we're really glad to have is to have Chester come in and put together these very well organized reviews. And it's writing is a skill, and it's something that a lot of us don't have.
I can barely string together 3 sentences that sound good.
I don't know how he does it. He does a great job of organization and putting these things in writing that anybody can understand. And still getting into the nitty gritty details. Yeah. So he's been great to have on. I do want to mention, I want to give a shout out here. He has a blog of his own, and he puts a lot of our stuff on his blog, and then he puts stuff that he writes specifically for our website as well. And his blog is called theolddeerhunters.com. I'm gonna look here at my phone to be sure I'm saying that right. I know it is. It's the old Deer Hunters with an S, hunters.com. The old deerhunters.com.
Say that
That's
3
his
times.
personal. Yeah, I'm not going to, not again. It's his personal blog. He's got a lot of great reviews of a lot of different equipment on there. And that's actually how Chester and I hooked up. He bought some Sightmark digital night vision a few years ago from me. Didn't know me from Adam, and he wrote this review basically about him and sent me a link to it, and I was blown away. I was like, "Whoa, this is really good."
Yeah.
And so, we started talking, became friends, and it's just story goes on from there.
It's so important to have, when we talk about social media and Facebook and Instagram and, all of the pictures and video aspect are covered by a lot of people. But the printed word, when it comes to searches and Google searches, is so important. And it's very rare these days to have a good writer, somebody that can write an article. And Chester's Colonel Cups. Maybe we should start referring to him officially as Colonel Cup.
I want to. He didn't seem to like that when I tried that. I don't
Chester,
know.
Chester, when you give him the respect the man earned, but Chester,
he did earn it.
Yeah, Chester is very articulate, and it's not a skill that is learned by that many people these days. So we're very appreciative of him, Michaela, everybody that Doug. I know he's I go to him sometimes for coyote hunting advice to try to get.
Doug's a great coyote hunter.
Great coyote hunter.
Yeah, I want to mention one thing here since we're talking about just the backstory and who all's kind of behind all this. Something that we have gotten, and it's kind of been the running joke for a long time, is Hans's name. And so this comes up a lot of times, and I think there's probably some people now who know that Hans's name is not really Hans. There's a couple places. There's a place on my website where there's a bio and it's got some info on him and it's got his real name. And then when we had his wife Crystal on here for the very first time, I guess whenever we did our first wives show, I think she, called him by his real name a couple times as she was slapping him or something.
When I'm in trouble, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, there's people who want to know, is this your... Now, I want to say one quick thing before Hans gets into this, and I hope this guy's watching. I had a guy called the other day, super nice guy. We talked a long time, exchanged some emails. He's actually a writer for a magazine. He was writing some articles and wants some information. Was going to talk about the podcast in there. And he told me in an email and he's a hunter, and he said that he was looking up reviews and stuff for himself, trying to find information about, thermal and night vision. And he kept pulling up YouTube and making searches, and the top thing that always came up was this guy named Hans. And he said, I kept looking at it, and he said, there's a lot of night vision reviews from overseas. And he said, it doesn't normally apply to me. And he said, some of it's not even in English. And he said, I kept seeing this guy named Hans, and I kept thinking, this guy's got to be a Russian skinhead. And he said he never would click on it because he just thought this is going to be somebody in another country.
Yeah.
And he said the ETX meant nothing to me. Didn't put it together. He said, so finally, he said every time he searched something, Hans came up. So he said, I finally clicked on it one time. And he says, this guy's from East Texas. And he said he was hooked from then. And so anyway, I thought it was really funny how he thought Hans was a Russian skinhead.
Yeah, the story behind it, and we keep meaning to talk about this, and I keep forgetting because to me I don't even think about it now because it's been so long. We've been doing this for 100 weeks, and I keep meaning to talk about this. But so the Hans nickname, I'm going to tell you, we're going to go ahead and put this to bed once and for all because it is not a fantastic, extravagant story of how I got my name or how I got my nickname.
I will concur with that. I didn't know this story till about 3 weeks ago myself.
That's not true.
And then
you knew it a long time ago.
It wasn't. No, not how you got it. When I heard the whole story, I was like, Wow, that wasn't as good as I
hoped. So I don't know if it's a country thing, a rural thing, East Texas thing. I don't know, but a lot of people around here, around our area, have nicknames, and I don't know. Is it like that down there in your county, Nacogdoches?
We have a lot of people with nicknames, but a lot of them actually kind of get the nickname. I mean, at birth, and it might even be on the birth certificate. I mean, you would think it's a nickname, but it's on the birth certificate.
And that's kind of
we have a lot of that and a lot of double names. Well, my kids have double names.
Yeah, that's true. They got double names. So it might just, and you really have to know my father-in-law. My father-in-law gave me my nickname. Oh gosh, many years ago. And your nickname. I'll say this: Hans is a nickname. It's a terrible nickname. I would have not chosen this nickname if I had a choice. But that's the beauty and the curse of living in the country and having friends and family. They call you what they want to call you, and you don't have a choice in it. And that's just, you're stuck with it.
That's right.
So and you really have to know my father-in-law, because my father-in-law has nicknames for everybody. I mean, you just have to, everybody has a different name, and that for the rest of their life, that's what they're known as. So, back many years ago, before my wife and I were even married, I was given, the name Hans culminated in, again, you just have to know my father-in-law. It started, my real name is Joel. Which perfectly normal biblical name. Enjoyed it, for a long time. But it started with, obviously, he was never going to call me my real name. He was never going to call me Joel. So I just knew that was going to happen. So he started calling me Joel, obviously the Spanish version of Joel. And then it went to Joelo. And then it went to Josuelo. And then it went to Hansuelo. And then it just got cut to Hans. And so now, ever since, it's been Hans, and that's how a lot of people know me, and that's how a lot of people refer to me around here. And if somebody says Hans or Joel, it really, I kind of joke with people when they meet me for the first time. They say, should I call you Hans or what? And I was like, You can call me whatever you want, call me Hans. The only people that call me Joel are the people that owe me money. So I just kind of make light of the situation. But, Hans is something that, again, is a nickname that has stuck, and not by choice. Again, you don't get to choose your nicknames. Your nicknames are chosen for you. I would have chosen a lot cooler nickname. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we could do a contest to get Hans a better nickname than what he's got, than what I've got.
There you go.
But,
that'd be awesome.
No, my father-in-law, brother-in-law, but our family's been that way. My brother-in-law, Boone, everybody in our town knows him as Boone. Well, Boone is not his real name, but when he goes to the bank, he signed his checks, Boone. Boone.
I was gonna say I only know him as Boone.
Yeah. and so that's been his nickname pretty much since birth.
And he has a son.
His son's his son's name's Crockett, but that's his legal name, so it's not a nickname.
It doesn't matter. It's still good.
Yeah. So you got Boone.
That's right.
Which Boone is his nickname, but you have a son, Crockett, and there's no telling what his nickname will end up being, but. It's just one of those things. So it is a nickname. It's something that, like I said, a lot of people around here know me as Hans. So that's kind of
it is a question that we get a lot because it is not a normal American name. So people have always kind of wondered where it came from. He's not a German spy. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I thought we should bring that out on episode 100.
You can keep calling me Hans. People out there that message, like I said, I go by Hans more than anything. So
sure.
You're not going to offend me or hurt my feelings, obviously, because.
That's right. He's still Hans. He's not changing his YouTube channel.
Yeah. So, but let's get into a little bit how the show got started, because I want to let everybody know out there. Well, first of all, you and I's relationship has gone back now a few years now, as where our I guess official partnership came in together a few years ago, and at that time, thermal was starting to get more and more popular. It wasn't quite
definitely was not where it is today.
Not where it is today. Definitely not. But you and I kind of found each other. I guess it was by fate or whatever you want to call it. But you obviously were in this business. I was just a guy that was producing content, hunting every night, but I was producing a lot of content, a lot of video content. And it kind of just meshed up really well where there were things that I could help you out with. There were a lot of things that you could help me out with to help both grow in, I guess, market visibility and that type of things. And so, you reached out to me. We actually met each other through a hog hunting forum. And the Texas Hunting Forum is where you put out a video about small hog lives matter, and I thought it was hilarious. And I think you saw some of my stuff, so we kind of connected there. But a year later, after working together, you called me up and said, "Hey, I'm kind of thinking about starting a podcast." And
yeah, let me say,
we skipped a year's worth of history, but
yeah. Well, no, so no, I just want to say about that. The podcast idea, this is a random shower thought. And it was. I remember standing in my shower and I was thinking, the YouTube videos have been great. I used to do a lot more videos when I had more time. It's the only reason I don't do them now. It's just literally the time it takes to produce them. Anybody that does these type of videos, even the ones that with this right here, what we're doing, it is very time consuming. Mm-hmm. The editing, the recording, especially doing reviews. And Hans makes it look easy. He's got the editing down. It still takes him, there's hours of time going into these videos. And so anyway, I had Hans. I was getting lazy, doing less and less, but I was like, I still need to be doing something. There's still another way. And I just got to thinking about, I had personally myself looked for some podcasts and things, previously in the years before. Man, I wish I could find something about, really good about hog hunting, or I could find something about, night vision or thermal or what we're doing. I mean, just purely for my own interest, and I couldn't find it. And so one night I was in the shower and I thought, man, what if we started a podcast? That would be weird. And I was just sitting there thinking about it. I mean, I can remember that. And that'd be, who would ever listen? Probably nobody. So anyway, I thought about it a little while. And finally one night on the phone, I asked Hans, I said, hey, this is a crazy idea, but what would you think about? And man, I could see the light bulb going off in his head. All right. He was just, oh yeah. This is a good idea. And so we kind of started talking about it.
Yeah. I had talked to somebody else about podcast, and to be honest with you, to people out there listening, to get a podcast distributed is not very difficult to do. Come to find out, I didn't know that at the time. You kind of knew how to get us started, but barely. You would think that getting your podcast distributed through iTunes and Google Play and Spotify would be some grand act, but it's really not. It's not that difficult. The difficult part, and what you did some research on different podcasts, was you would see them do about 10 episodes and then they would be done,
or less.
Yeah,
or less.
Most of the time it was
3,
less. Yeah,
5.
And
yeah.
The problem is, and what you find out is, well, there's a few things. First of all, coming up with content on a regular basis enough to put out there and create a show, a 45 minute show, is one thing that a show struggles with. But, when you're putting out content, to do so, to get an audience, you've got to put out a show regularly, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks. This has to be regularly done. And we thought, doing a one show a week show was going to be something that was going to be able to grow an audience. So, I think what people run into those when they start doing a podcast and they don't see the listeners joining up, or they don't see the listeners tuning in, it's a little disheartening, and you kind of have to fight through that a lot.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that, you went through that with your YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Is it takes a long time to grow.
Yep.
And and you know what? I'll say this, we've been blessed, but it doesn't automatically happen.
Yeah.
You can do it for 100 episodes or 100 YouTube, videos, and it still might not grow.
Right.
I mean, and a lot of that comes down to, the person, the content, the personality. And then sometimes it's just the way that the apps work and YouTube works. And sometimes the algorithms don't like you and you don't get out there. And but it definitely, I think that is the one thing that helped us was knowing going in. I'll say this, we had a plan. Now, it didn't all go as planned, but we knew that our biggest struggle was going to be continuing to find content. And I'll just shoot y'all straight. That's going to be the biggest struggle going forward. Yes, when there's reviews and there's all those things, it's great. When we're out of the review season and you get into these dry spells of nothing to review and it's just relying on us coming up with topics and things, sometimes we're like, good gravy.
And that's where,
what are we going to talk about for the next 30 episodes?
Yeah. And we try,
and y'all can probably figure that on your own.
Well, it's good. We have guests on that help with some of those topics. And a lot of you provide topics through email, and that is always helpful. And we do take a look at all those emailed topics to use for future shows. But, going back to what I said, it's not difficult to get a podcast distributed, but, the production of what we do with the YouTube videos, putting that on YouTube, the production of that and execution is time consuming. But I would tell you what, it's been very rewarding in a lot of different ways for both of us.
Yeah.
And
and I want to say something here real quick, because I know we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about, but I want to say that, just a thanks to Hans for what he really does. As you can obviously tell, we're in two different locations. Hans and I both live in East Texas, but we live a couple hours apart. And so we record this on our own recording equipment and our own studios with our own audio, and then I have to go in and convert my audio to the way that he needs it in a file size that he can handle. I have to upload it through the internet. Then he has to, because he doesn't have good internet where he's at, so that's a struggle. Yeah. He has to go somewhere else with better internet, download the video. Then he has to go in, edit his video, edit my video, sync them up, combine them, put it all together, basically remaster the whole thing. He creates this final file. Then he's got to go somewhere else, upload it again to get it to YouTube. Then he has to send me just the audio.
Yeah.
Then I get the audio. I have to edit all the audio, have to do all the things that the podcast apps require. Then I have to upload that separately. It's an act of Congress.
Man, when you lay it out like that,
it's a multi.
Yeah. It makes it sound a lot more difficult than it is.
It's not. It is very difficult.
There's a lot of steps.
And Hans spends a lot of time on his end. And then, Wednesday nights, I can tell you where we're going to be. We're going to be uploading he's going to be uploading a video. I'm going to be doing the audio. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
And people don't. And again, I'm not looking for credit for that. I'm just saying Hans deserves a lot of credit. I mean, I don't do near as much as he does.
If you want to compare me and Jason's working relationship here on the show compared to traveling musician, I'm like the roadie crew that comes and sets up for the show.
Oh my!
Jason's the rock and roll star that comes in, does his show, drops the mic, and walks off stage to his green room, and then I got to clean up everything after the show's over. That's kind of how it works out here.
All that was true, except the fact that I'm not really there's not the star. So other than that, he does do all the cleanup.
Yeah. But anyway, it's been fun, and speaking of fun. I want to find out, because after the past 100 episodes, I want to talk a little bit about our favorite moments and our, I guess you could say worst, but our favorite memory and probably worst memory of the last 99 episodes. I'm going to let you go first.
Oh gosh!
Just because
I have no idea where this is going.
Because so I'm interested to know, out of all the 99 past shows that we've done, what is your favorite memory? It doesn't have to be something specific, but favorite memory of any past shows, and something that still gives you ulcers today, thinking back on it.
I have a lot. I want to hear yours first.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to say my favorite memory of the Past 99 shows, by far, hands down, has to be the very first Wives.
I knew that's what you were going to say. I knew it.
The very first, because if you have not watched that episode, you need to go back and watch it. I don't remember what number it is, but it's the very first Wives episode.
It was around Christmas or Thanksgiving of
2018. 2018?
18.
Yeah.
Yep, 2018.
So
yeah.
it is the Hunter's Wife trivia game that we did. But when you go back and watch the video, Jason the whole time was red-faced, and you could tell he was just filled with anxiety of what his wife was going to say or how she was going to embarrass him. And if you watch this show enough and you listen, you know my greatest pleasure I get when Jason feels uncomfortable. For some reason, that's just
he loves it.
Very funny to me. So him sitting there red-faced for 45 minutes, waiting on his wife to say something that's going to completely embarrass him, was probably by far my favorite moment of all the show. Now, we've had some great guests on, and all the guests, James O'Neill, James Woolley, James Haggard, Tyler Adair from Ultimate Night Vision. We've had Byron South, Glenn Guest, North Texas Crop Protection. The guests are always good, and those are always fun. But seeing you completely embarrassed for 45 minutes and as red as the tomato was my favorite. Now,
well, you know my wife very, very well, and I love her to death, but she loves to say silly things, goofy things, and which is normally fine. But when we're recording on my podcast related to my business, I'm like, what is this woman going to say to embarrass me? So, I would have to say if I want to talk about probably one of my favorites. It's hard for me to come up with specifics. Just my memory's not that great. But I was going to say. Actually, it's funny you chose that episode. I was going to say the same thing because I know that you were having a impossible time controlling your wife, and at one point she gets up and like I don't even know what she's doing, but she gets up or something and has on her pajama pants.
My God. She is going to kill you for bringing that up.
I'm like, what in the world? So, it was great.
If you are in a business or you do work where you do a lot of conference calls, from the waist up, you wear something that looks nice and presentable, but what's down below really doesn't matter until you stand up. Well, in the video, you can see her stand up, and she's wearing fuzzy fleece pajama bottoms or something, which is her typical uniform.
It killed me.
But
killed me.
She is going to kill you for mentioning that. Oh, man.
She is. It did that. That was one of my favorite moments. And I will tell you one more favorite moment. I'm going to say real quick, and then we can move. But this one did not make the podcast, and what happened
probably a
was
good reason. I don't know what you're going to say, but this only happened a couple weeks ago. Is we're recording, and Hans starts to tell this very normal story that was just like a side note, and I guess that his wife was listening and could hear from outside the room, and she bust into the room and says, "You can't tell this story." And we're in the middle of recording the podcast. I don't know what's going on, but I can hear her. And he's like, "Crystal just walked in," and I'm going with this. We're still recording. Okay, what's going on? Anyway, it was. I can look back.
It was not funny. It was not funny at the time because I found out Hans was not happy, and we did have to literally stop the podcast in the middle, pick back up. It caused a ton of work for him, but I was rolling inside because she had interrupted the whole podcast.
Yeah,
and she didn't mean to do it.
And I kind of had to eat a little bit of crow on that because I was. But yeah, looking back on it now, it's kind of funny. But in the moment, it was.
No. I knew you weren't happy in the moment, but it was funny. So
I will say my worst memory. I've never been in fear of losing my position here as executive producer of the Late Night Vision Show podcast. But there was one time, do you remember that you were pretty mad at me for something? And that's hard.
I don't remember ever being mad at you.
Because I don't want to, maybe you weren't mad. You were frustrated because and it takes a lot to get Jason mad. I don't think I've ever seen you mad, but it takes a lot to get you frustrated. There was a certain episode where, at night, we start this show pretty late. So we're kind of on a tight window between getting this show done and wrapped up and getting on the rest of the things we need to do at night. But there was a certain time where you were trying to get a hold of me to start a podcast, and I was nowhere to be found.
I do remember this.
Jason, at our normal time when we record the podcast, he called in at the normal time. Well, he could not get me. I was nowhere to be found. He called and called and called and called. I just so happened, Jason told the story earlier of where he had hogs out in the field, but there was nothing that he could do about it. He just had to sigh and then walk on and go to record the podcast. I'm not that kind of person. I cannot let hogs walk like that. And I got a camera. I had a picture pop up on my cell phone that there was a hog at my camera here by the house. And it was right about the time that we were going to shoot the podcast. Well, I just said, I'm going to run out there, shoot that hog real quick, and I'll be back in time. Well, I got out there, I shot the hog, but time just escaped me. I don't know what I was doing, but I was I was like an hour late, and you were calling. I think I left my phone inside, but you were pretty hot when I got in.
I was not happy. I don't remember. Well, I wouldn't say that I was mad, but I was not happy because we already, I don't even know what time it is now. It's
10:30 right now.
Yeah. It's 10:30 right now. Yeah. And so these things, we're not even done. There's still, and this is the other deal. I have an hour and a half of emails like right now that have to be replied to. Anybody that's ever emailed me, you probably know you get a response normally between that 11 and 1 a.m. because that's normally when I try to reply to emails is late at night. So I have a lot of work to do, after this. And I can't get this fool. He is MIA. And I know it's like nothing's happened. If it was bad enough, I would, call his wife. I know where he's at. I know what he's doing. He's shooting a dadgum pig because he cannot
I can't let
one walk.
I can't let it go. Well, you were able to, because you are a man of responsibility and integrity, and you passed on the 18.
Right.
You passed on the 18 hogs today.
18 hogs.
If there was one hog out there that weighed 35 pounds, I'd still be out there trying to get rid of
he would drive 20 minutes to go shoot that
hog. So that was I wouldn't say that was probably the only negative thing, other than countless technical hiccups and the difficulties with audio when it comes to having guests on and that kind of thing. But other than that, it's been great.
I was going to say that I think if and this is going to, again, inside baseball here, but the worst moment for me that I can think of, and we have had a lot of technical issues in the background. Maybe some of them y'all have seen. A lot of them Hans has been able to work through. We have had audio problems. We've had problems with the guest audio, just a lot of different things that, especially recording these things remotely, not in the same room, there's going to be problems. I think that the worst moment for me, I can remember this gut feeling, and it was maybe only I don't even know, month or two ago. It was sometime recently this year, and we recorded the whole podcast, and I said, "Oh man, that was good." It went well. Hans is like, "Yeah, I think everything went good. We were happy with it." Because this is a one take deal. Yeah. We don't stop and start. So if you screw up, we screw up, but we were happy. So I got back down to my house and I get the audio onto my laptop. And when I turn it on, I turn it, and there's no audio.
Yeah.
It's just me and my mouth moving. And so I skip ahead about a minute and it's nothing. And I am pure panic at this point. And so I call Hans, and it's like midnight, and I'm like, hey, you are not going to believe this. He's like, what? And I said, I have my video. There's no audio. And he was like, he's like, is the audio bad? Is it weak? I was like, there's no audio. It's terrible. What are we going to do? And we're in panic. Yeah. Like,
I mean, it basically means if you can't recover the audio, that means you have to basically re-record the show.
We have to just start over, just a whole new show the next night, which puts us behind on all of our schedules. And we're just like, oh my gosh, panicked. And so anyway, he's just like, I don't understand. Not me neither. And then I don't know how I figured it out or what I did, but I somehow skipped ahead in the video and there was audio. Then we both remembered that when we started, just like turned on the audio or the video recording, I hadn't turned on my microphone. And before we started, I thankfully had remembered, said, oh, I got to turn my mic on. Yeah. And so I had forgotten that. So I just had the first 4 or 5 minutes of us chit-chatting with no mic. And I remember the gut feeling, which I've had several other times on this show, of thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to literally have to re-record this whole show. And, and since this thing is not, scripted, again, we kind of have an outline sometimes if we're going by. But, you never know. You're not going to say the same things again. So I was worried. But that was the worst gut feeling.
That's my nightmare because it's tough when you do a one-take show to have to redo it again. But I was surprised. I figured you would say, like, your worst moment was me making you talk in the booths at SHOT Show and talk about scopes while you're in the booths at the SHOT Show.
Well, if I didn't know that was one of the options of the things that you make me do, yes, that's the worst.
Again, it's all about that. It's all about trying to embarrass Jason or make him feel uneasy or nervous about doing something. That's the whole goal of being able to put on this show.
That's what you like.
So,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just to wrap it up, our best and worst moments have been very entertaining for all of us. I hope it's been entertaining for you. But the next 100 shows, I know we've got, we hit the first milestone, 100 more weeks. We definitely plan on doing this come hell or high water. We definitely want to
or coronavirus or whatever. Yeah.
But we've got a lot coming up in the next 100 episodes. As Jason said, we're just in the very tip of review season. So you and I, we've got a lot of things that we're reviewing. Like I said in the past episodes, I've got a stack of scopes and optics back here that I need to test. You're getting more in right now.
Yeah, we were talking today, and I was like, what do you have? Because I have this. I need to review this. I need to review that. We need to do this on the podcast. We can compare these. And I was like, dude, I got more stuff coming tomorrow. Right. I mean, as we're in that review season, and I know some people get maybe, tired of that. Like, I've already got my scope. I don't want to hear about that. But we do a lot of reviews, and I think we'll do more and more. I will say that there's going to come a time that we're going to miss a week. We've gone 100.
Don't try to.
No, I'm trying to get us some wiggle room in case it happens. But no, there's going to be some time it's going to happen. But I think I do think that we pushed through several weeks of sickness, not feeling good, and y'all could tell that our voices didn't sound good, one or the other or both of us. And so I think, I don't know. Hans and I are both pretty hard-headed, so we don't like to give up. But unless we're sick in the bed, we can't roll out. But I do think eventually, I just don't know if we can go another 100 episodes without missing a show.
Well, I tell you what, we've got a lot to talk about coming up. We've got a lot of reviews. I know next week we're going to be doing and people love these videos, the comparison videos, and we're going to be comparing the Pulsar Digex N450 against the Pulsar Digisight N450. And we're going to be doing a comparison against both of those. I know that there's been a lot of people that have asked about the differences, what we think, which one's better. So we're going to be taking those out. I'm going to be doing my official review of the Pulsar Digex N450 on the Hans East Texas YouTube channel this week as well. So we've got a lot of reviews. We're going to have more guests. If there's any topic or guests that you'd like to hear from, send us an email at the Late Night Vision Show.
Yeah,
or
I was just saying,
comment to this video.
comment.
Yeah,
you can comment. We read all the comments. I want to say, we'll jump in here real quick. We love your comments. And I can promise you this. If you leave a comment, we read it. And you're going to go, well, you read mine and you didn't answer my question. We do try. But between Hans's channel, this channel, my channel, all the social media stuff, we get literally tens of comments a day and questions, and it's very, very difficult. So we do our best. There are some weeks, if we're busier than others, we can't get in there and answer every question, but we read them. And your suggestions, your kind words, your hateful comments, we just delete. So yeah, but do definitely the things you want to hear about. Hey, sometimes it's stuff we can't do. Yeah. You know, sometimes it's we have a lot of requests from guys that are outside the U.S. They want us to review things that aren't even available in the U.S. or things that we don't sell at Outdoor Legacy or whatever it is. But hey, you know, if you think it's got something to do with night hunting or whatever, throw the request out there. And a lot of the things we've talked about are from, you know, viewer questions or suggestions or things that we just see keep coming up over and over.
Yeah, so we'll keep reviewing items. Jason and I will still be out there hunting. We'll be talking about hog hunting and predator hunting tactics. We'll have interviews. We'll still continue to do this the same time, same week, Thursday of every week, still dropping podcast episodes. But we appreciate y'all joining us again this week. If you are interested in finding out more about night vision and thermal optics, you can find them on outdoorlegacygear.com. You can always call Jason or I or Michaela on the phone at 877-350-1818 if you'd like to order a scope or an optic. And you can find all of our past episodes on thelatenightvisionshow.com. If you listen to us on iTunes, please give our show a rating, and we'd really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really helps us out a lot. I don't know how they do it on Google Play, but if they have a rating site there, please give us a good rating. And any of the audio podcast sharing platforms that you listen to on, we really appreciate it. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find Jason, all of his social media stuff on Facebook, Instagram at Outdoor Legacy Gear. You can find me on YouTube at Hans ETX, HANSETX. And now you know how I got my nickname, Hans. So, again, you can call me whatever you want to call me. But
but don't call him late for supper.
Don't call me late for supper, exactly. Then, you know, you can find me on Instagram, Hans ETX.
Well, I just want to say one last thing, folks. We get this question a lot, and we get even some recent comments. I don't like to harp on it, but I want to say this. We've already talked about it in the show, but this podcast exists only because of Outdoor Legacy. That is a full-time job for me. It's a full-time business. It's a full-time position for Michaela, you know, and employs Hans as well part-time. And so we cannot operate this show without your support. And we're not asking you to come donate money. We're not asking you to buy something you don't want. But when or if you get ready to buy something in night vision or thermal optics, we ask that, you know, you would consider us for your business. We would love to have it. And by, you know, supporting us, it continues to support the show. And so we appreciate all the loyal listeners, the loyal customers. You mean so much to us. We would not be here without you, because if nobody but Hans and I were listening to this, we'd get tired of talking to each other, and we'd probably go back out there and shoot those 18 hogs in my pasture. Yeah, exactly. So thanks for coming back every week. 100 episodes in the can. That's a big milestone for us. And again, we couldn't have done it without y'all. So as always, we want you to stay safe in the fields, keep making those bacon pancakes, and stay away from that coronavirus. So we will see y'all next Thursday.